Hey, MzeroA Nation, Jason Schappert here, and as we're bringing Mock Checkride May to a close, again, I'm just so thankful. If you just jumped in this video, I would encourage you, go back, watch the private, the instrument, the commercial Mock Checkride videos as well. They're only going to serve you because there's a lot of information in there that truly just transcends all check rides. We even get into like how to dress and everything else, and that information transcends all check rides, what to eat, what to bring with you, all those sort of things. But the CFI Checkride, wow, that is the one everyone fears. There is a rumor going around that it has an 80% first-time failure rate. And while I don't know the exact stats to the percentage, I do know it has a very, very high first-time failure rate. And do you know why it has such a high first-time failure rate? It's not what you would really think. Everybody thinks, wow, you have to know everything. Jason, it's like 2 check rides in one, Jason always says, private and commercial. Teach me steep turns at a private pot level, now teach me at a commercial pot level. And that's all true, and people feel like they have to know everything, and that's not always true as well. We'll get to that in a second here. The real reason people fail CFI check rides is they're not prepared. Let me explain. They're not prepared in the sense of, first off, this is a marathon check ride. And if you are not mentally prepared for that, you're setting yourself up for failure. While your private or your instrument check ride was maybe an hour and a half on the ground, an hour and a half in the air, my CFI check ride was over 2 days. The ground portion went 4, almost 5 hours, and I eventually had to say, I am fried. I cannot go hop in an airplane right now. You just grilled me for 5 hours with like 2 breaks. Can I go home, rest, and come back and fly in the morning? And the gentleman said, yeah, I kind of plan on that. That's typical. It's typical to do a CFI check ride over multiple days because the ground is a mental marathon. And you can't expect yourself after talking for 5 hours to then go out and hop in the airplane and fly your best and continue to talk, by the way, because it's just never-ending teaching and talking, and it's going to be a 2-hour on the Hobbs type flight anyways, which would wear anybody out. Plan for 2 days. A lot of people don't even prepare for that. So when I say prepare, I mean water, snacks, lunch, everything you think you're going to need and then some. And bring them for the examiner too. Can we keep he or she happy and in a positive, uplifting mindset? Give them some coffee, do something to make everything easier for them as well, yourself included in that. Not too much caffeine though that you're nervous on top of it. It is a difficult check ride. But students, or now we have to use the word learners, I'm going to encourage you to adopt the word learners as well. The FAA stopped calling us students who are now learners, so let's adopt that here together. Learners is that as we're going through this, we don't prepare adequately because our lesson plans just aren't there. Let me explain. You know, for CFI, you have to make your own lesson plans. And let me tell you one of the things I hate the most: buying, sharing, borrowing lesson plans. Nothing will set you up for failure like that. Again, I shared some stories from my collegiate aviation days in the commercial version of this video last week. I'm going to share some more with you. I saw friend after friend, learner after learner, acquaintance after acquaintance fail CFI check rides because everybody was sharing their CFI lesson plans. One studious learner made the lesson plans and sold them to the next guy or gal who let this person borrow them, who let them borrow, making no changes. And of course, in a small school, we use just one DPE for everything. Eventually, the DPE on the 4th or 5th CFI check ride is going, you don't really know what you're talking about, but it's in your lesson plan, so you wrote it at one point, or did you? By the way, I saw the same typo 4 times now. I've seen the same image 4 or 5 times now. Eventually, the DPE, we literally had a powwow meeting where the DPE said, listen, I assume everyone here is going to be a CFI one day. You all need to stop sharing lesson plans. And I was in that meeting, I'm thinking, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm making my own lesson plans. And I buckled down, and there's a lot of just long, late nights of making my own lesson plans. But I didn't learn how to become a good pilot. And I'm not a great pilot. Great, that's a little too cocky for me. I just want to be a good pilot right now. A good pilot who's always learning. But I didn't even become a good pilot until I became a CFI. until I had to learn how to teach, to work through these sort of things. So my greatest encouragement for you is this: make your own lesson plans. Don't you dare borrow them. Don't you dare buy them. Now, if you need some guidance, hey, Jason, can I see a template? Can I just peek at someone else's to get an idea of what to do? I'm fine with that, because that's a big task. Like, hey, can you make the entire private pilot ACS and lesson plans? And you go, whoa, that's a really big task. It might be nice to see that broken down a time or two. And I totally get that if you want to just look at somebody else's to get a template, but certainly not just to copy paste, because that is not acceptable, because you don't learn the material. And you are not going to benefit your learners when you become a CFI. Let me tell you something. My lesson plans are now pushing 20-something years old, and they may still say PTS and teach old slow flight and some old school things in there, but it's still a huge binder that I crack open every now and then and look, just not only to remember where I came from, but wow, that was a good idea. Wow, I forgot about this. 20 years later, I'm still using my lesson plans. And I would encourage you to do the same as well as you look and dive into that. So make your own lesson plans. Now, you came here for a mock check ride. Well, I'm not going to give you an exact mock check ride, because it's actually the other way around, right? You begin teaching me things. Is how it works on a check ride. So I need you, rather than quizzing each other right now, why don't we get you in the right mindset? Think about it this way. How would you teach me hypoxia at a private pilot level? Okay, you might say, well, Jason, hypoxia is a deficiency or lack. Got to break things into plain English sometimes. A deficiency or lack of oxygen to the vital organs, most specifically the brain. We experience that most in aviation through altitude. You've heard the phrase, the air is thinner, right? That's not exactly the case. It's technically less dense, but thinner. We're familiar with that. You go skiing in the Rocky Mountains, you get out of breath because the air is thinner, you hear them say. The same is true in aviation. We can experience that deficiency of oxygen because there's simply less oxygen aloft. And that's why we have these oxygen requirements, 91 to 11, and we can get into that, right? That's a good way to explain it at the private pilot level. Now, the examiners can say, Jason, good job. Now I'm a commercial pilot. Teach it to me like a commercial pilot. And you're going to say, well, you remember from your private pilot days, and I'm sure even a little bit from instrument, that hypoxia is a deficiency, a lack of oxygen to the vital organs, specifically to the brain. Now, what you need to understand as a commercial pilot is, we learned it's because the air is thinner, less dense technically with oxygen, but there's actually, it goes more than that, because there's truly 4 types of hypoxia. And then we get into hypoxic hypoxia, and histotoxic, and stagnant, and hypemic, and we can go through all the 4 types of hypoxia. And then from there, we dive into 91 to 11, our oxygen requirements. Then we get into the actual type of oxygen. We can't just use medical oxygen. We have to use what's called aviators breathing oxygen. You can't use the green canister, right? Actually, if the FBO pulls up with a green canister, that's medical oxygen. It should technically be a yellow canister, because that's the color of the bottles to differentiate between the types of oxygen. Do you see the level of detail you need to get into at the commercial pilot level? It really is 2 check rides in one. Teach me hypoxia at the private pilot level, now teach it to me at the commercial pilot level. And that's where you have to draw a line, because it's so easy to get into the weeds. At the commercial pilot level, I need to know about the different types of hydroplaning, the different types of parasite drag. I need to know all these little details. But at the private pilot level, I just need to know really the 2 main types, induced and parasite drag. Maybe not the different types of parasite drag. I need to be aware of hydroplaning, but I don't necessarily need to know the square root formula of my tire pressure at what speed I'll hydroplane like I do at the commercial pilot level. The devil is in the details, and you have to draw that line and think back to your days. And you might say, Jason, I didn't have a good instructor to teach me all these things. Can I tell you a secret? I learned more from my bad instructors than I did from my good instructors. I am blessed and thankful for my good instructors. I'm even more thankful for my bad instructors. Anybody out there can agree with that? I learned, listen, I'm doing the opposite of what this guy or this gal is doing here. I learned so much from my good instructors, but even more from my bad instructors. So think back to that. Think back to the time the bad instructor didn't give you all the information. You had to go dig for that. Be mindful and think about those things. So listen, MzeroA Nation, you are a blessing to us. Hope you'll be joining us for the Mock Checkride Zoom, MzeroA date and details and everything else. Coach Ray has, look at that, he just swiped in just like that. He's magical, you know, he can do those sort of things. Hope you'll check that out there as well. And as you are prepping, although I don't have a full CFI course yet, emphasis on yet, you know what? As you're making your lesson plans, it might benefit you to go through the private pilot and the commercial pilot ground schools just to get some ideas for your lesson plans. And you can do that free of charge for 2 weeks. Head over to MzeroAtrial.com to check that out. 2 weeks, no credit card, no strings attached. Just check it out. Use it to build your lesson plans, whatever you need. And I know you're going to be sending your learners our direction too once you're a CFI, so you'll know what your learners are getting themselves into as well. So listen, go be a light, go be a blessing, have an amazing, outstanding rest of your day, and most importantly, remember, the good pilot is always learning. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you.